The year was 1825, and the cotton fields stretched as far as the eye could see, shimmering white under the unforgiving Georgia sun. To an outsider, the fields looked like prosperity. To those who toiled there, they were chains without end. Among the enslaved, whispers traveled faster than the overseer's whip. Stories were told in hushed tones while picking cotton or by dying embers at night. Stories of two undergrounds, one that promised freedom in the north, and one darker, crueler. The reverse underground railroad. This hidden network preyed on free black men, women, and children, dragging them south into bondage. It was a cruel reversal of hope. Freedom stolen, families shattered, names erased. But even in this world of betrayal and chains, a name began to spread. Some spoke it in fear, others in reverence. Queen Mara. To some, she was a shadow, a myth who moved like smoke between towns, stealing back those who had been stolen. To others, she was a flame, bright, dangerous, impossible to ignore. Few had seen her face, but all agreed. When hope was nearly gone, the queen appeared. Mara had not been born into greatness. She was the daughter of a seamstress named Ruth and a sailor named Elias, both free blacks living in Philadelphia. From her father, Mara learned maps, routes, and the secrets of the sea. From her mother, she learned patience, resourcefulness, and the power of words. By the time she was 15, Mara could read and write, a gift denied to most. She had a laugh that could warm a room, but eyes that seemed older than her years. Her childhood ended the day Samuel, her closest friend, vanished. Samuel had been free, born of free parents. But when he traveled south to visit a cousin, he was kidnapped, dragged into the markets of Savannah, and sold. Mara begged for help, but the courts turned a blind eye. Free papers meant little when greed outweighed justice. That wound never healed. At 15, Mara vowed never again to stand powerless while someone she loved was stolen. By 20, she had mastered disguises, gathered allies, and stepped into danger with a courage that made others call her queen. The first time Mara entered a slave market, her breath caught in her chest. The stench of sweat, fear, and greed clung to the air. Men shouted prices, children wailed for their mothers, and women were inspected as if they were cattle. It was a theater of cruelty, and Mara had chosen to step into its very heart. Disguised as a merchant's widow, veil drawn low, Mara walked past the auction block where Samuel had once stood. She searched every face, hoping for a glimpse of him. She never found him, but she found something else, a cause worth risking everything. Mara memorized the market's rhythms. She studied the guards, the buyers, the weaknesses in their greed. She bought time for those about to be sold by claiming false interest, then slipping them away when night fell. Her rescues were not grand battles. They were quiet miracles, pulled off with wit and nerve. Each life saved was a victory against the reverse Underground Railroad. Yet each night, Mara dreamed of Samuel's eyes, wide with terror, and swore she would one day bring him home. The Underground Railroad was already a whisper of hope by the 1820s. Stories of brave souls finding their way north carried through the fields. But Mara walked a different path. She became the mirror image of that road, running south, straight into the jaws of danger, to snatch the stolen back from the brink. It was harder, riskier. Where freedom seekers slipped into the cover of the North Star, Mara fought against a system designed to erase freedom itself. But her mission was clear. Every person she saved was a strike against the cruel network that thrived in silence. While Harriet Tubman would one day be remembered for her northward journeys, Mara's name was erased, buried in fear and secrecy. Yet, in 1825, among the whispered songs and secret codes, Mara's reputation grew. She was the queen of the second road, the road that ran backwards, the one few dared to walk. No queen rules alone. Mara's strength was not in crowns or armies, but in the people who believed in her. Dock workers at Savannah slipped her information about ships carrying stolen men. Midwives forged papers declaring stolen children were theirs. A preacher hid messages in his sermons, guiding her toward the captured. Together, they became her royal court. Each member risked their life by standing with her. If caught, they would face chains or worse. But Mara inspired loyalty by leading not with fear, but with sacrifice. She would not ask someone to face danger she herself would not. When she walked into a slave pen, others followed. When she faced bounty hunters, they stood beside her. The queen's true power was trust, and her people gave it freely. One stormy evening, as rain lashed the cobblestones of Savannah, Mara heard a faint sob behind a market stall. There, huddled in the shadows, was a boy no older than 10. His clothes were torn, his feet bare. "Who are you?" Mara asked gently. The boy flinched. "Isaiah," he whispered. "They took me. From Baltimore. My mama. She don't know where I am." Mara's heart clenched. Baltimore was hundreds of miles away, yet here was a child stolen from freedom and dropped into the jaws of slavery. She pulled him close, wrapping him in her shawl. "You are not alone anymore," she promised. "I'll get you home." That night, Isaiah became more than another rescue. He became Mara's mission, a living symbol of everything the reverse underground tried to destroy. For the first time, Mara wasn't just saving a life. She was saving family. Isaiah's journey home would be Mara's most dangerous mission yet. Escaping southward was unlike fleeing north. There were no safe houses, no songs pointing the way to freedom. Patrols hunted runaways, dogs sniffed out scents, and every stranger could be a betrayer. Mara carried Isaiah through swamps that reeked of rot, across rivers swollen with rain, and along trails so narrow one misstep could mean death. She fed him scraps when food was scarce, told him stories of brave men and women who defied chains, and sang hymns to keep his fears at bay. Isaiah clung to her, calling her Mama one night, as they hid beneath a fallen tree. Mara's breath caught. She had never borne children, but in that moment, she knew she would protect him as fiercely as if he were her own. And with every step, Samuel's memory walked beside her, urging her onward. Hope was a fragile thing. For days, Mara believed she could outwit the patrols. But greed is sharper than loyalty. A ferryman she trusted to carry them across the Savannah River betrayed them. Drawn by the promise of reward money, he alerted bounty hunters. As Mara and Isaiah stepped off the boat, armed men surrounded them. Chains bit into their wrists. Isaiah cried out, his small body shaking. Mara held him close, whispering fiercely, "Don't give them your tears. You are more than their chains." That night, locked in a dark pen, Mara faced the terror she had spent her life fighting. For the first time, she was no longer rescuer, but captive. And Isaiah, her son in all but blood, was trapped beside her. Charleston's slave market was alive with cruelty the next morning. Buyers jostled for position, voices rising in eager bids. Mara and Isaiah were dragged onto the block, their wrists bound, their dignity stripped. A man prodded Isaiah's arm like cattle. Mara lunged forward, her chains rattling, eyes blazing. "You will not touch him." Her defiance drew gasps, even laughter. Isaiah wept, terrified. Mara leaned close, whispering, "Listen to me, son. You are not for sale. You are mine. No man here can own what God has already claimed." In that moment, something unshakable bound them together. They were not prisoner and rescuer. They were mother and child. Night fell on Charleston, but Mara's spirit burned brighter than the torches lining the streets. She had prepared for this. In the hem of her dress, stitched by her own hand, lay a hidden blade. When the guards grew careless, Mara worked the blade against her ropes, cutting slowly, silently. With wrists free, she turned to Isaiah. "When I say run, you run. Don't look back. Moments later, chaos erupted. Mara slashed through ropes, shoved Isaiah forward, and set fire to a nearby shed with an oil lamp. Flames roared upward, painting the sky with defiance. As guards shouted and scrambled, Mara and Isaiah slipped into the dark, swallowed by the night. Behind them, Charleston burned, not from destruction, but from the spark of resistance. After days of hiding, moving through swamps and sleeping in ditches, Mara and Isaiah stumbled into the Blue Ridge Mountains. Exhausted, they were taken in by a settlement whispered about among the enslaved, the Garden. It wasn't marked on maps, but hidden behind dense forests and steep ridges. Here, freed families, escaped slaves, and sympathetic whites lived together, building cabins and planting crops in defiance of the world beyond. It was a sanctuary. Isaiah ran in the fields with other children, his laughter echoing in the valley. Mara, for the first time in years, allowed herself to breathe without fear. The community embraced her as a leader. Her reputation had reached even here. But peace was fragile. In her heart, Mara knew, if she could find this place, so could her enemies. She kept watch every night, listening for hounds in the distance. And though the garden gave hope, it was a hope that had to remain hidden. Caleb Price was not a man who tolerated humiliation. A former overseer turned bounty hunter, he had lost men and money when Mara set fire to the Charleston yard. His pride burned hotter than the flames she had lit. Price was tall, with a scar running down his cheek and eyes as cold as iron. His hounds were legendary, trained to follow the faintest scent. For him, capturing Mara was no longer about the reward. It was about proving no one could defy him and live. Weeks after the escape, word reached Price of a mysterious woman leading rescues and a boy traveling with her. His fury grew. He swore before his men, "I'll drag her back in chains. And when I do, the legend of this so-called queen will end." Dawn broke with the crack of gunfire. Price's men stormed the garden. Families scattered into the trees, carrying what little they could. Shouts echoed, children cried, dogs barked viciously. Mara grabbed Isaiah's hand and ran. Branches tore at their clothes as they fled through the dense forest. The sound of hounds drew closer, their snarls like thunder in her ears. Isaiah stumbled, but Mara pulled him up, whispering, "Just a little farther, son. Just a little farther." At a crossroads deep in the woods, Mara stopped. Her chest heaved, her legs ached, but her mind was sharp. She knew the truth. She couldn't outrun Price and his men forever. If she kept Isaiah with her, both would be caught. She bent low, hiding him inside a hollow tree trunk. "Stay here," she said firmly. "No matter what you hear, do not come out." Isaiah's eyes filled with tears. "Mama, don't leave me." Mara kissed his forehead. "I will always be with you. But tonight, you must be braver than me." Mara stepped into the clearing, alone. Torches flared as Price's men closed in. She raised her hands, her back straight, her eyes unafraid. "Well," Price sneered, "the queen herself. You've led me quite the chase." Mara's lips curved into the faintest smile. "A queen does not run, Caleb. She stands." The men bound her wrists and struck her, but she never cried out. Behind her, hidden in the hollow tree, Isaiah bit his lip until it bled, fighting to stay silent as his mother's figure disappeared into the darkness. Price paraded Mara through Charleston as if she were a trophy. Her wrists were raw from chains, her face bruised, yet her spirit was unbroken. People lined the streets to see the woman who had defied the slave markets. "Look at her," Price spat. "This is what happens when you think you can play queen." But as Mara walked, head held high, something remarkable happened. The enslaved whispered her name. Women nodded to her. Men clenched their fists. Children stared wide-eyed at the courage in her step. Mara turned her head slightly, giving them a small smile. A message passed silently through the crowd. "Even in chains, I am free." For weeks, officials interrogated Mara. They starved her, beat her, demanded she give up the names of her network. But Mara said nothing. Not one name. Not one word that could betray those who risked their lives beside her. In prison, she carved messages into the wall with a shard of stone, verses of scripture, words of hope, maps only her allies would understand. The guards mocked her, calling her the Silent Queen. But silence was her weapon. Every day she endured, her legend grew. Among the enslaved, her defiance spread like wildfire, the queen who would not bow. In early 1826, Mara was sentenced to hang. The gallows were built in the town square, crowds gathered, and Price stood front and center, certain his victory was complete. As Mara was led up the steps, her eyes scanned the crowd. She saw mothers clutching children, fathers staring with pride, not fear. She lifted her chin and said loudly, "You can kill me, but you cannot kill the fire I've lit." Just as the rope was placed around her neck, chaos erupted. Dozens of men and women surged forward, enslaved, freed, even sympathetic townsfolk. Stones flew, fists swung, soldiers stumbled. The square exploded into riot. When the smoke cleared, Mara was gone. Some swore she was whisked away in the arms of her allies. Others whispered she died, but her spirit vanished like smoke. Caleb Price, humiliated again, raged that she was dead, but deep down, even he wasn't sure. Isaiah, hidden in the hollow tree, had fled north guided by Mara's allies. He reached Philadelphia months later. His mother never returned, but her words never left him. As he grew, Isaiah became a teacher. In his classroom, he told children about the woman who saved him, the queen without a crown. "She gave me more than life," he told them. "She gave me courage." To Isaiah, Mara was more than a rescuer. She was his mother, and though he never saw her again, her spirit shaped the man he became. He married, raised children, and passed her story down like an heirloom. In 1863, during the height of the Civil War, Isaiah, now an old man with silver hair, handed Union soldiers a worn leather journal. "This belonged to her," he said softly. "To Mara." Inside were pages filled with codes, maps, testimonies of kidnappings, and instructions for rescues. It was a record of the reverse Underground Railroad, exposing how free men and women had been stolen into slavery. It also contained routes and strategies that Union soldiers later adapted into escape lines for refugees fleeing the Confederacy. Mara's voice, silenced in Charleston, spoke again through her words, and for the first time, the nation began to understand the shadowed road that had stolen so many lives. History books rarely mention Mara. Her name was buried in silence, her deeds overshadowed by others. But in hidden corners, her story lived on. Families passed it down. Children repeated it in whispers. Teachers like Isaiah made sure her memory never fully died. She was the queen without a crown, the rescuer who became a mother, the prisoner who refused to bow. Her sacrifice lit a fire that carried into the fight for freedom long after her body disappeared from Charleston Square. And though the world forgot her name, those who knew the truth remembered. The fight for freedom is not only about escaping chains, it is about breaking them for others. Mara was never crowned in gold or jewels. Her crown was sacrifice, her throne was courage, and her kingdom was every soul she freed. The forgotten queen of America's reverse Underground Railroad still reigns, in memory, in spirit, and in every act of defiance against injustice.